I think we're fortunate right now to have a lot of healthy competition there. But those guys will probably take the field first in the first group.
What have you seen from Jaden?
Jaden's been outstanding in terms of leadership, knowledge of the defense. He a lot of ways, just like Jay was, paid real close attention in his time, in those backup roles. And, we're starting to experience it right now with some of the stuff that he's got beneath the surface knowledge wise that's providing us with a pretty good foundation.
What I know it's not kind of quote unquote under your jurisdiction, but who's been at the cash the most?
The cash has been Lupmer, it's been Cohen. Those two guys have been, really the fixed piece at that position right now. And we've got some younger guys working there. Cale Kaleric's have worked there as well. So, it's just a mixture, but I would say those two guys have taken most of the reps.
Preston Reese is getting some accolades, for his athleticism. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, Preston's been he's been a great addition from the sense that, he just possesses some type of characteristics that you don't typically see out of a freshman, especially what he's done in the weight room. And that's where a lot of that publicity's come from. And I didn't realize until the other day that, that freak list had ever come out or had come out yet. And, I'm not surprised that he's on there because some of the numbers got out of the weight room and got publicized, but he's been good. And he like the other freshmen, Derek and Cam, those guys are really building the foundation from the ground up, and it's providing us with a ton of depth that I think will be good for us and beneficial defensively, but it's also going to be very noticeable when it comes to our special teams.
With Carson, it's always been health more than anything else that's kind of kept him back. What healthy now, obviously. Has he looked like the guy you've kind of dreamed he'd be?
Yes, and that goes way back.
Yeah.
Back to his freshman year, second year here. Like there were some flashes of just some really good talent, at the linebacker position, and then he's bounced back and forth between being healthy, not being healthy. But based on the last couple snapshots I've had, which would be the back half of spring practice and then the first 8 practices this year, Carson's, he hasn't had any hiccups. So, knock on wood, I don't see any wood right here, but knock on wood that we stay in that path.
Hey, you're 8 practices in or whatever, and you've still got your voice. Is that a new record?
I was working hard on that last night. And we had our media training with the group yesterday, and, I could sense that it was, but it's been better this year. And it's 25 years in the coaching profession. You'd hope at some point it would just get calloused and keep coming.
Seth, can you talk about Landon Van Kekerix? Am I pronouncing his last name right?
Yep.
What was the recruiting process like with him? And then has he got a chance to factor into some serious defensive snaps?
He certainly does. And, whether it be Landon, whether it be Jaden Montgomery, I know Coach mentioned the 3 guys that'll probably take the field in the first group tomorrow. But there is a lot of healthy competition there, and Landon's certainly in that mix. And going back to his recruitment, Landon was an FCS kid, and he was from the northwest corner of Illinois. LeVar knew about him. We knew of him, and I'd say his recruitment in a lot of ways is like Seth Benson's. Just being tucked up in that northwest corner and being slated to go to an FCS school, and then we ended up falling in love with him, and he's been great for us. Obviously he made an impact in the Missouri Bowl game. Ran down on a kickoff, had a hell of a play there, and so we're just we're riding the wave right now of some of these guys that are providing depth and hoping to clear the picture up defensively.
Was he a signing day ad? If I'm correctly, or
no,
late in the process?
Yeah, I still remember being up there caught in a storm and having to stop at a local bar downtown because it was. I mean, when I say it was nasty out, and his dad's calling me, "Hey, did you make it out of town before the storm?" And so no, it wasn't as late as it may have appeared to be. Like we were on him at a good time.
Yeah.
And eventually got him turned in this direction.
With this linebacker, I mean, there's so many guys involved. What are you looking for maybe as like a key factor to make the decision as who's going to play? Is it consistency, just leadership? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, we got to put these guys in the fire as often as we can at this point in camp. And then we just really got to see how they navigate the smoke that comes with the fire. And, I use that analogy because, it's kind of like Norm used to always talk about putting the fire out, being a firefighter. But you got to experience those situations. And sometimes those situations are so unpredictable that, you don't know how the fire starts. It's just a matter of going out there and trying to navigate what comes after you feel the heat of, the moment or the emotion that goes into it. And that's what these guys are lacking, at this point, is enough of that. And I use the word lacking. We just haven't given them enough of it. They're unbelievably knowledgeable when it comes to the defense. And I mentioned earlier, like they've done things in a way in which Jay Higgins did them, a way in which Jack Campbell did them, where when they were buying their time, they paid unbelievable attention. They were incredibly invested. So they know our defense and they know it in and out. They just need those situations where things happen a lot faster than just, being able to look at something on the board, make a decision what we're doing.
Have you seen Nolan belong for this?
Nolan, just like Landon Van Kickerix or Jaden Montgomery, I've got 5 seniors right now, and those are the more notable guys because they are in that position. But Nolan's done a great job. Nolan had a deal back in the spring that we got cleaned up medically, and it was very minor, but that limited him to a certain degree. But he's fully healthy now, hasn't had any hiccups in the first 8 practices. So, Nolan's put himself in a position where he's going to help build the depth and hopefully clear the picture, when it comes time for us to tee off in 3 weeks.
You mentioned being thrown into the fire. Jaden kind of was against UCLA last year. I know he didn't have a fantastic game, but I guess how do you evaluate such a small sample size and then him being here so long at the same time? It's just kind of an odd situation, I guess. Yeah,
it's I laugh jokingly. Yes, it was a tough situation that he was thrown in, against UCLA. And then to make matters worse, the first snap he took, the ball was in the middle of the field, which, if you know anything about us defensively, when the ball's on the hash, we set our defense to the field. It's real easy to do. But when you're playing the multiple offenses and the ball's in the middle of the field, it requires a little bit more to try to figure out where to set the defense. And, so the first play, I hated it for him because that was a tough situation because you're getting thrown in there and all you're thinking about is getting your ass out to the field, getting lined up. And you're probably not thinking about what personnel are they in, what multiple formations can they come out in. And that one ended up breaking out to our left. And, so that's kind of a snapshot of just, maybe some opinions that might circulate in terms of, is he going to be ready? Is he going to be enough? And, I would say this about Jaden Harrell, like if you guys look at his numbers, which you don't have them, like strength, performance, all of those are on par with other guys that we've had that have played that position. And I mentioned it before, like his depth of knowledge in regards to our defense is really significant. Like it is, like he knows the ins and outs. We were, as a defensive staff, a half an hour ago watching the decision that he made down the red zone today on a zero pressure that we were running that requires a depth of knowledge defensively. And he immediately saw it, made the adjustment, and, we ended up picking up a pretty good play defensively. So, I'm excited for it, but, like I said, we gotta find ways to throw them in the fire, and then they've got to navigate the smoke that comes with it. And a lot of that has come with a little bit of a climb. It wasn't that way right out of the gate, but they saw it pretty early. Hey, this is how we need to operate as a member of this unit or as an individual linebacker.
How much can you learn as, those guys, those 3 seniors, they've had to learn from the bench because of the COVID rule. Nick Jackson's here for a bunch of years. James is there for a bunch of years. How much can they learn by just kind of observing? And what does it say about them? They stuck around. They're Iowa kids. They want to stay.
Yeah, I think we're fortunate. We've recruited some really good kids, and I think we've recruited really, really well at the linebacker position. And I think we're continuing to. You look at the guys that we've got committed right now, headed into next year's class. I think it's an illustration when you talk about the lack of attrition, so to speak, maybe that we have at the linebacker position. We don't have guys, leaving this program because, one, we don't have the disease of the football, and I'm talking offensively, like guys that want the football. Like it's our job to go get the football. So I think we're fortunate that way defensively. And then, the other thing is, these guys are all developmental kids. Like they come in here. I remind them that, if you're playing in your first year here, that's not much different than you playing in 8th grade in high school. It doesn't happen very often. And, a freshman here has got to go up against the left tackle at Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State, that might be in his 5th year. Like that would be an indication of us not doing our job recruiting wise. So I think we're just fortunate that the standard has been set for years with other linebackers that have come through here, that these guys, they come in here, they work, they appreciate the coaching, they appreciate the development, and I think they actually appreciate the time that they're given to put themselves in position to be one of those next guys at the linebacker position.